Om Sahanavavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvi Navadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. We were discussing the fourth chapter. We'll continue with that. We had seen the of karma in akarma and akarma in karma, right? You remember the stillness in the middle of activity and action in the midst of inertia. So, stillness in the midst of activity is a person who is not attached to the results of his actions, even while he is engaged in action, even while he is engaged in karma, it appears as if he is not doing anything because he is not craving for the rewards. And action in the midst of inertia is a person who is not, I mean, when he realizes that even though he is sitting still, there are so many other activities happening within, and a person who can remain still inside and work externally is the real, realized person, the sage. It is not the other way around, not sitting quietly doing nothing, but mentally brooding over all sorts of desires. Which is why Krishna says in the 17th shloka, the nature of karma is very difficult to grasp. We should correctly know what is karma, what is akarma, and what is vikarma. Now, we discussed this in some detail before I think when we reviewed the third adhyaya. Let us just refresh our memories. And when we say karma or when we say vihita karma, it basically refers to something which we are supposed to do. It is, which we have to do as a matter of our duty and which gives us certain result. So it can be starting from something as mundane as ensuring that the door is locked before you go to bed, right? So in our house, somebody will be given the responsibility, one of the kids, okay, before you go to bed, check all the doors are locked. Or somebody will be given the responsibility when you put on the switch for the overhead tank. There you have to wait for 5 minutes and then switch it off. It's a vihita karma, your prescribed duty. Or somebody is responsible in the house for cooking and keeping the food ready at certain time. They have to, that's their duty. So this vihita karma is something which we are expected to do, which we are assigned, and we are responsible for that, and it obviously gives us some result when we do that work. Then vikarma is something which is unfavorable, which is forbidden, and the actions that should not be performed, which is prohibited actions. Then akarma, we have seen, has two different flavors of meaning. Primarily, there are many other meanings, but primarily it has two flavors of meaning. One is akarma in the sense of giving up all the karma, that including the ones which are mandatory or required, which is like absolutely doing nothing, becoming lazy and lethargic and useless for yourself, useless for your family, useless for your society. This is akarma, this is laziness, right? So that's when he says, definitely in the third chapter, if you remember, he says, definitely karma is better than laziness. Karma jyaya hi akarmanaha, na prasidhyet akarmanaha. It is really not useful to, indulge in akarma. Even the basic maintenance of your body will not be possible if you are going to be lazy, right? The other one, the positive meaning of akarma is performing the necessary actions, the prescribed work that is given to you, but not getting attached to the possible results. So performing action as as though it's really important and you're giving all focus and intensity, but you're not concerned about how the result is going to come. You're not concerned about how things are going to shape up. So it almost feels as if that you're not performing any action because you're so detached from the possible outcomes. So this is also a karma. And that is why Krishna says in the 18th shloka, a person who sees akarma in karma and karma in akarma, even when he's engaged in action, a person who sees this akarma and karma, it appears as if they don't do anything. Karmani abhipravrittah api na eva kinchit karoti saha. It appears as if they're not doing anything. Actually, they're doing work, right? But because they're not craving for the results, it almost appears as if it is a very natural way of being. It is not like somebody who is, look at the, two students. One student is somebody who is only interested in getting a high score in the exam. So how will this person behave? The only interest is high score in exam. So there's no point in this person studying in the summer holidays because they are only interested in the exam. So come January, they start studying all the time and they're burning midnight oil and cramming as much as possible. And then their only intention is to get this high score. And the other student is somebody who enjoys reading. Whether there's an exam, there's no exam, they'll always have a book in their hand, they'll always be reading something. So the reading becomes a part of their nature. When you see a person who generally loves reading, sitting in a corner in the room and reading, you don't see that as something special because anyway that's their nature. You have associated yourself with this person reading, so you don't think that they're doing something special. But this other kid, the moment you see a book in his hand, you say, oh, exam banta, oh, you have exams coming up now. Oh, that's why you're holding a book in your hand. So you can almost, you feel, oh, there's a motivation of that end result, which is why he is working. Whereas in the other case, it becomes a nature. So even while engaged in action, it appears as if they're not, doing anything. They are just, anyway, that's the nature of the person to read, right? So a person who can do this, who can see akarma in karma and karma in akarma, which we have seen these examples in great detail in the last session, he or she is a sensible person. They act sensibly at all times. And even though they are engaged in action, they are not attached. That we'll see also in the 5th chapter where he talks about Padmapatra Ivambhasa. Like a lotus leaf in water, it's not attached, but it is very much part of that, right? Now, this verse really captures the essence of the concept of karma, right? When you can be detached from work at the same time you are engaged in action, then you are a kritsna karma krit, he says, a person who is worthy to perform all kinds of karmas. Because he is doing his work or she is doing her work, but not influenced by the consequences. It's important here to realize that it's not that they are heedless. Like there are some people who do their work without bothering about the consequences. Let anything happen, I will only do this. That's not what he is saying. The person who is wise is not overly influenced by the consequences, overly motivated by the consequences. Now, the understanding here is that we are operating inside a framework of dharma. We have identified our swadharma, that this is what we want to do, and we have engaged all our indriyas, our jnanendriya and karmendriya, the sense organs and the organs of action. We have employed all of this in the service of our duty or our action, what we have undertaken. And our focus is on the present moment, not worrying about what will come out, not being motivated by the possible outcomes. So that is the nature of this lotus leaf in water. So the lotus leaf comes from is born out of the muck, the dirty mud, but it's not attached to the mud. It's born from that, but it is not attached to it. At the same time, when it rains and water droplets fall on the leaf, the purest drop of water, even that doesn't stick to the leaf. It just slides away. So whether it is born in dirty mud or whether it is in the association of the pure water droplet, either case, it doesn't affect the lotus leaf. It is remaining unaffected. At the same time, it is not hating any one of these. It is very much in existence, coexistence with both of these things, but it is not attached to it. Right. So now this comes to a couple of questions that were raised, and also I think there was a question in the chat. So there was a question about akarma and the 47th shloka of the second chapter, karmanyevadhikaraste. The other meaning of akarma, that is working without attachment to the result, is exactly what is there in the shloka. Now there was a question, very nice question from Sharmila Iyengar about karma and attachment. So her question is, it is our karma to take care of our family, provide food and shelter, education, and support, and so on. And that comes with wishing well for them and also worrying about their health, their studies, their marriage, which actually would be attachment. So how can we do karma but not have attachment? Right? This is a very good question, and I'm sure many of you will have this question in your mind. Now, if because I have attachment towards my parents, because I have attachment towards my children, that is why I'm engaging in karma. That's why I am doing my prescribed duties towards them. Now, I'm not going and cooking food for my neighbor's kid, right? So I'm doing it because I have attachment to my kid, I have attachment to my parents, so on. Now, this is true that the motivation for the karma is certain attachment. Like, for example, when we say that artha is the means to fulfill kama, artha is the mechanism by which we fulfill our desire. So we all have desires, and we use artha to fulfill our desires within the framework of dharma. You remember we discussed this quite early in our session when we discussed the 4 purusharthas, or the 4 cardinal values of human life. Now, this is applicable to everybody. I mean, people at large, because most of us have desires, and most of us are in a quest to try and fulfill those desires. Whereas if there is somebody who doesn't have any desires, then this entire Purushartha framework itself is somewhat irrelevant to them. If there is a person who has no desires, that means what is the meaning of Artha? There is no meaning there's no use for Artha. Somebody who has completely transcended desire, if you give him $1 million, it means nothing to him, because what he will say, what will I do with this? I don't need anything. I'm already fulfilled. So then once there is no kama at all, then there is no dharma. There is no artha. And once there is no artha and kama, there is no requirement of dharma, because this person will, by nature, by default, he will become dharmic, because the whole idea of dharma is to ensure sustainability in the universe. When somebody is not consuming anything, he does not have any desire for consumption, how can he harm anybody else? How can he cause any damage to the environment? He is not interested in consumption. He is not consuming anything. He is just there. And he is also a wise person. Once they transcend this desire, they observe that their life is so much more comfortable, and they work for the larger welfare. It is a natural extension of that. So for such people, this framework is not even required, it's not even relevant. But for most other people, this framework is very important, very useful. So the basic attachment, basic desire is the one which makes you take up karma. However, it is beneficial if one can perform their action without focusing on the possible results, because, like I said earlier, all our mental energies and physical energies will be dedicated towards the fulfillment of the action, will be dedicated towards the completion of what we have taken up. Whereas if we are worried about the future, if we are thinking about what might happen, then a part of our energy is dissipated in those thoughts, right? Because when you're studying for your exam, if your focus is on what is there in the book, then you have all your energies towards this book. Whereas if 10% of your energy is like, oh, what is my friend studying? Maybe she's like 2 steps ahead of me. Or what is what is the question that the teacher will ask? This time the paper will be set by this very deadly teacher. She will ask something out of the syllabus. And all these thoughts, what's happening? By you thinking about this, you are not going to change the fact that if a friend is studying or doing something, you're not going to change the fact that somebody is setting the paper, whatever. But all you are doing is you are wasting 20-30% of your mental energy on things that you can't control. That's why whatever you can control, you put your energies there. So that's what really it means. Now, this takes me to another interesting, important thing in the Bhagavad Gita or in Sanatana Dharma in general. Because the whole structure of Sanatana Dharma, which has developed over 6 to 7,000 or more, 10,000 years, depending on how we look at it, it has been time tested. It has been honed in the real test of human life. Therefore, the prescriptions given in Sanatana Dharma are at different levels. So, wherever you are in your spiritual journey, you have something which is prescribed for you. Let us say you're a person who is very attached to your children. You will find something which is valuable. So, the instruction from the Gita is, well, definitely you may be somebody who's overly attached to your child, but at least some little bit of time try to be without that, or at least some activities which are not so consequential you try to do with detachment. So there is a path for, there is a prescription for everyone depending on where you are. Because if we give a very high ideal prescription that only 3 people in the universe can follow, it's useless for the rest of them, right? So if there is an instruction that can be tailor made, that can be customized to each individual, that kind of a system is going to be much more useful and sustainable, right? So this tailor-made approach of Sanatana Dharma, which will give you some guide, which will give you some sort of guidance based on your caliber, based on your specific requirements. That is what makes it very, very powerful. It is not giving you some ideal state thing and expecting you to do that. Then we had another question about so there was somebody who had written about suicidal tendencies, and I had asked them to send me a mail. So Sudha Narendra ji had sent regarding shloka 40, where person is skeptical on every aspect. Is it a personality trait or is it a personality disorder? So I'll come to that a little later, but basically anybody who's overly skeptical, their life becomes more and more difficult. So more than a personality trait, I think it's a huge inconvenience to lead our life. And I don't know whether it has anything to do with suicidal tendencies. We have to check with a psychologist for that. But definitely it makes our life very miserable. There is no doubt about that. Okay. Another trait that Krishna talks about in the 20th sloka is about being ever satisfied, nitya triptaha, and nirashrayaha, not dependent on other people. Again, we have seen in the third and the fourth chapters, it is not possible for any human being to be 100% independent, because all the natural infrastructure, the devas, right? All the natural infrastructure are working for our benefit, and we get so much of support from the world around us. What it means when we say nirashraya is, to the extent possible, this person does not depend on anybody or anything. And if the support system exists, if they are living in among very good family members who are taking care of them and who are very friendly and so on, they will be fine with that. If they are living in a jungle and they have to depend solely on the largesse of the forest and getting some fruits and leaves and eating that and some roots, they are okay with that. If they are living in a cave where they get nothing and they're just meditating and not having anything to eat, they are also okay with that. They are not getting perturbed by the environment. So basically, that's what it means. It means that they're not craving other people's support. They are not dependent, that their entire life activities, for some people, it's entirely dependent on others. People who are wise, they realize that this external support is temporary. It may be there, may not be there, and they cultivate certain detachment so that they can be independent, right? then we have seen that when they are people who are wise, even though they are working, it appears as if they're not doing anything because they have transcended this attachment to possible outcomes. Now, all of us have this freedom to determine what is karma, what is akarma, what is vikarma. We have the freedom to think about this and determine correctly what is the vihita karma, what am I supposed to do, what are the things that are prohibited for me, what are the things that will lead to laziness for me, what are the things that will lead to peace of mind. All these possibilities are there. Even then, there is some problem, there is some difficulty in this and living this kind of life because our buddhi or intellect is marred by prejudice. There are certain prejudices we have over time. Now, the traditional interpretation is this comes from the vasanas from the previous birth. A practical interpretation could be that it is basically when from the childhood we are grown up with so many ideas and opinions and thoughts that we have cultivated certain prejudices that can come in the way of our objective analysis of karma, vikarma, akarma, and so on. Now, it is possible by applying the individual viveka, which is present in everybody, at least to some extent. Not everybody may be extremely wise, but this basic intelligence, basic viveka is present in everybody. Now, at least for example, I know that I am not a jnani. Now, even somebody who thinks he is a jnani, he knows that, well, it is not the right thing to say I am a jnani. There are, there is this kind of self-praise can be detrimental. So these kind of possible, like basic thing, I know my limitations. That itself is viveka. Now, if somebody asks me to give a lecture about constitutional law, I will say I don't know this subject, so you should ask a constitutional law expert. If I am a viveki, which most of us are in that sense, right? But an aviveki, although he does not know anything about constitutional law, will accept and he will go and give a speech about constitutional law, which will be totally irrelevant, and he will make a fool of himself. But many of us will have the viveka to say, this is not my subject, I don't know anything about it. You please ask somebody who knows. So like this, the basic viveka is present in all of us. And this viveka, when applied correctly and over a period of time, slowly can result into adhering to karma well, and over time it can result to vairagya, that is detachment from karma phala. So this is a step-by-step process. Let us say you are a person who is very lazy and you are lethargic and you have no concept of karma. First step is you do karma. You be bothered about motivation. You be bothered about the result. Doesn't matter. You just do karma. A lazy student is worse than a student who's working hard just to pass the exams, right? A person who is in the office just so that he gets a salary is better than a person who's in office and sleeping in the office or not doing anything. So from the state of laziness, you first graduate to a state of doing hard work, even though you're motivated by action. Once you are working hard, not motivated by action, the results of the action, slowly you transition to a stage where at least few things you do without any expectation. So you may be earning a lot of money, you're working in a company and you're getting a huge salary and you're only working because of the salary. Maybe once a month you go and do some social work, or you do some gardening, or you teach a child some basics of mathematics or hygiene or whatever. So at least little bit of time in your day or in your week or in your month you're spending without any expectation. Then slowly you try to push that to whatever activities you do, you try to do without attachment. So like this, there are step-by-step approaches there. You, wherever you find yourself, you try to push yourself to the next higher level, right? Now, the whole idea is some activities at least should be done in the spirit of yajna. So I told you earlier that now we may not always be lucky to do what we love, but the next best thing is to love what we do. At least if we are whatever, whether you call it vidhi or destiny or the circumstances that have made you an engineer or a lawyer or a doctor or a janitor or a sweeper, whatever you are you attain in your life. One is to try and accept and do your work well and be happy with it. And if you really have the motivation and the bandwidth and the support system and so on, to try and push yourself to another state where you are more comfortable. Maybe somebody is working as a janitor, but in the free time he or she spends a little bit of efforts and energy to go to a library and read up a little bit and learn some information about some subject. They may move from being a janitor to some primary school teacher. They may move from being a primary school teacher who's working there and not really keen about it, but trying their best to do that work well. And in the free time, in the late night, early morning, they are preparing, working on something, maybe cooking, and then they become a chef in a restaurant or a hotel or something, right? Or somebody who is a chef, they want to push themselves to some other level. So first you accept your reality, do that well, and at the same time you have a parallel track which takes you to another stage. So like this, there's always a possibility based on what your attitude is. 1 second, I think the school is So like this, we push our standards so that at the final stage, we accept whatever comes as a result of our actions, and we are content with that. We are happy with what comes of its own actions, and we are freed from this duality of pain and pleasure, aversion, attraction, happiness and sorrow. All these dualities, we are gone beyond that, and we are the same whether it's success or failure, whether we have accomplished, not accomplished, we are the same. So and that's when whatever we do, we are not bound by this. Kritvapina nibadhyate, he says in the 22nd shloka, right? And then finally, from the 24th shloka onwards, there's a fairly detailed discussion about the different aspects of yajna and how karma yajna works, and how he starts off by saying that Brahman is the offering of the arpana, Brahman is the huta, the oblation, Brahman is the agni into which Brahman offers the havis, which is also Brahman. Like this, every aspect of the yajna is connected, is equated with Brahman, because Brahman is all pervading. So the karta, the person who is doing the action, karma, the action, and karma phala, the result of the action, all these things are equated with Brahman. Now, we saw similar thing in the 3rd chapter as well, right? Humans are bound by their action except when performed in the spirit of yajna. And the wise eat the food that remains after being offered to yajna. So in this manner, they are released from all papa. So we realize that all our happiness and our well-being is a result of the divine grace. Now, we may have actually done the work using our hands, but it is the hand of the divine which gave us this, result. If this is what is going on in our mind, then the natural result is that we are absolved from all kinds of evil, because you are not taking ownership of the actions. The reason, again, there is a different way of approaching this. So a bhakta, a person who has faith in the Supreme Being, he has complete belief that whatever he does is done by the Supreme Being. Like I said, always it is very easy for a bhakta to understand. If a bhakta has to understand Bhagavad Gita, he or she will understand it in a trice. The difficulty is with people like us who are not bhaktas, who want to approach everything through a rational mind. It is difficult and it takes more time. And this, even in Krishna says this in the 12th chapter, it is much more difficult if you are a thinking person. Now, that doesn't mean you should be a heedless person, but a person with Shraddha and Bhakti will get it much faster. Whereas a person who is questioning, who wants to understand everything, every detail, will take more time. It's a more painful and more irritating process. But at the end of it, you will get the same result. So for people who want to apply their mind and question, then you realize that although you are doing an action, the results are coming because of the work of so many people. Now, I may be interested to publish a book. I may be interested to give a lecture. Now, in the process of me preparing for this lecture, I would have to refer to so many books, which means that so many great authors, so many great thinkers have put down their thoughts in the form of books. Now, if these books had to be published, there should have been a publisher, there should have been a compositor, there should have been an ink maker. Just to produce one book, it is so many hundreds of people would have come together. So, like this, we realize that whatever we are doing, although we are reaping the benefit of our actions, there has been so many invisible hands that have come together in this performance of this, in the fulfillment of this action. So, therefore, we cultivate gratitude. In the case of a bhakta, he cultivates surrender to the Supreme and complete belief that the Supreme is doing everything. In the case of a person who is approaching it through the marga, he cultivates gratitude for all those people who have worked for it. In the end, what is the result? The result is the same. The paths are different. Like I said, Karma Yogi has a different path, Jnana Yogi has a different path, but the destination is the same. What is the destination? That we are cleansed of all evil thoughts, evil papas from our mind, because we realize that we are not the one who is doing the work. At the same time, this does not mean that we are not accountable for our actions. Now, if I am responsible for something and it goes wrong, I cannot blame all these 100,000 people who are supporting me. I have to take responsibility for my action. Now, if I make a mistake, I have to own up the mistake and try to improve the next time. There is no problem, right? And sometimes mistakes can be very costly. But at the end of the day, if our intention is right, if we are doing it with all awareness and still things go wrong, then it is not our fault. It is the fault of the unknown factor, which we will see in the 18th chapter. The unknown factor is beyond our control. However, we, having taken up the responsibility of something, will have to compensate for that, and that is our responsibility. That's our duty. So here it may seem a little unfair that when the final result comes, you say it's all these people have contributed and something goes wrong, it's not a success, then you have to own the success. But that's how life is. That when something goes wrong, we take responsibility. At the same time, we also realize that when our intentions are good and when we have put our best effort, the same support system will come to lift us up. The support system will be there to ensure that we are not going into some sort of depression now. And the whole idea is even-minded in success and failure is the repeated motif we see in the Bhagavad Gita, right? Okay. Then he talks about the different kind of yajnas, the dravya yajna, the tapo yajna, swadhyaya yajna, and so on. Ultimately, all these yajna are rooted in karma, and jnana yajna is the most, because they have to reach jnana. They're rooted in karma and they have to reach jnana. That's the ultimate idea. They find fulfillment in jnana. One of the very interesting ideas in this chapter also is the presence of the divine. So practicing the presence of the Supreme. So whatever we do, when we think of something, doing something as yajna, we think of it as an offering to Supreme Being. Now, what is the practical value of practicing this presence of Supreme, cultivating this sense of, being in the presence of the Supreme Being? It's a very practical value. Now, let's say we are by ourselves in our room. There's nobody with us. We are alone in a room. We will sit the way we want. We will, wear the clothes that we are comfortable with. We may just wear underclothes. We may not wear clothes. We may be lying down on a bed with our leg in the air or whatever. We may be reading a book or playing a game on the phone, whatever, right? When we are by ourselves, we are just how we want to be, the most natural, comfortable way for ourselves. When we are with people who are very close to us, very close friends or parents or siblings or children or something, we'll be little comfortable. We may not be exactly like how we were inside our room all alone. We'll be a little more comfortable. We may be, speaking the way we naturally speak, maybe using certain slangs or maybe using certain, cuss words, or you may be using certain usages that are very typical to the region that only few people can understand and so forth. But how will we behave in an interview? How will we behave in a public space when you're giving a public speech? Or how will we behave when you know that there is some celebrity who's sitting next to you? Right? Let's say you're a big fan of Rajnikant or Sachin Tendulkar or Aishwarya Rai or somebody, right? And you're suddenly in a room with this person and there's some conference or a discussion or something. And will you be like sitting how you sit in your room with your legs in the air? No, you would be like, oh my God, I have to be very, very sing. You all like very time prim and proper because you have to create a good impression, right? So after that, if you get a chance to speak to this person, take a selfie or get an autograph or whatever, it'll be. So now imagine if you were all the time thinking that there is this divine being which is with you, right? So let's say Krishna, okay, in this case. Now, if I assume that Krishna is here with me and observing what I do, how will I behave? How will I speak? How will I sit? As opposed to thinking that nobody is there, I can do whatever I want. The fact is, in reality, in the material plane, let us say that there is nobody here in this room. But just the emotional belief at the level of Adi Daiva, right? If I believe that there is this divine person sitting and watching me, I will suddenly elevate my standard. I will not be speaking bad language. I will not be lazing around. I will try to do, just what is supposed to be done, and I will be in my best behavior. And imagine if somebody is in their best behavior all the time. That's exactly what you expect from a sage, what you expect from a wise person, that any time of the day or night, they're on the best behavior. So, therefore, it is very important to have this feeling that you are in the presence of divine, presence of some, a powerful being. And like I said again, a bhakta will find this very easy. Whereas a person who is following karma marga or jnana marga may find this little more difficult. I was reading some years ago, there was a productivity expert in the US, and this was about 10 years back, I think, when Facebook was still very, very, like a very big deal. Now I think it is moved to Instagram and other things. So there was this guy who was a productivity expert. He was very addicted to Facebook. And he did not know what to do. He had tried everything. And finally, he hired a person. He paid money to this guy, hired an intern who will sit next to him. Okay, he will sit next to him in the office. And this intern had only one job, and that is to look at this guy's screen. And the moment he goes to Facebook, this intern will slap this fellow. Okay, and then after like receiving some 10 slaps, he realized that the moment he's going to Facebook, there's somebody watching and he's going to give me a slap. I mean, of course, slap in the sense he's the boss, so he will not be slapping him very hard. But even a light slap is itself good enough for him to realize that, hey, I'm not doing the right thing. So he actually hired somebody for a week whose only job was to just keep watching the screen. The moment he got distracted, to just whack him on the head. What happened after a week is that now his entire system was rewired so that he would not go to that whatever website. In that case, it was Facebook. But if we have this person who is telling you, and you have hired this person, because all the time your mom and your dad are doing the same thing, right? Hey, why are you sitting here? Go and study, do that. So that's what they're telling you. But you have not hired them to do that. So therefore, you don't have the value. Whereas if you're paying somebody, $100 a week to just do this work, then you know the value. You take them seriously. That's why when the parents say something, you'll not bother about it. Whereas same words, exactly same thing, some other person says, some career counselor tells you, or some physics professor tells you, you take it as Veda Vakya. But when somebody who's very close to us, and it's applicable to other way also, your children may be telling you, Dad, you're doing this thing wrong. Why are you doing this? You won't bother. Whereas your friend's son or friend's daughter tells you, Uncle, why don't you do it like this? Oh, see how bright this child is. He has told me this. So we have this proverb, right, in Kannada, Hittala Gida Maddalla. So a plant in the backyard is not a medicinal plant. It is not something useful. So you don't realize the value of it. So the point is, when you cultivate the presence of the divine in your surroundings, naturally you behave, you think, you do everything in a more exalted state. And we also saw this beautiful verse in the fourth chapter where you go to a guru and learn the knowledge, highest knowledge, by pranipatena, pariprashnena sevaya, by bowing down, by being humble, by asking meaningful questions, all round inquiry, and by service, by offering help to the people. Because the whole idea is you want to learn this Tattva Jnana not in a theoretical sense alone, but in an overall sense. So by living with the Guru, you observe how they behave, how they react to real life situations, and then you learn from that experiential knowledge. Finally, the fourth chapter ends with laying emphasis on being decisive. One who is ignorant, insincere, and indecisive gets destroyed. One who remains hesitant and confused can never be happy, whether it is here or hereafter, whether it is in this world or in the other world after death. Even after death, they cannot be happy. And I am reminded of a anecdote. My father's friend used to tell this. He also written about it in his book, in one of his books. So he says there is a bottle of scotch on the street. Okay, it's whatever, Glenfiddich, 12 years or 18 years, beautiful bottle of scotch in the middle of the street, and this first person goes past it. He looks at this, he says, it makes no difference to me. I am not a consumer of alcohol. It is immaterial to me. And he moves on. The second guy comes and he says, oh my God, this is a bottle of scotch. It's like there for the taking. But if my wife finds out, she'll be very angry and she will beat me up or she will scold me. Whether I should take it or not. But what if somebody else is seeing? If any of my friends are seeing, then if I take this alcohol, my name will be stained, that and this all the way. And he leaves that bottle and he goes away home and he spends a sleepless night feeling so bad. Oh, I wish I had drunk it. No, I should have taken it. And the third guy comes, he sees, oh, bottle of alcohol, opens it, drinks it, and falls there flat. Okay. So the three people have dealt with this in three different ways. One person says, I have nothing to do with this, whether it is alcohol, what I don't drink, it makes, whether it is the 18-year-old scotch or whether it is some desi tarra, I have nothing to do with it. I'm very comfortable. He goes and he even forgets it. The moment he crosses the road, he would have forgotten that he has seen it because it's irrelevant for him. The second person, he craves for it, but he can't take a decision. The third person, he's no confusions. He goes there, he sees this, oh, fantastic. He drinks it and he falls just there without bothering about the consequences. So the first person and third person are, at least as far as they are concerned, they are happy. The first person is happy then and also happy later. The third person is happy then and later he may not be happy. He may have a hangover and be vomiting and all that, but at least for that time he's happy. Whereas the second person, he is neither happy at that time, nor is he happy later on. He will be cribbing for a long time thinking I should have taken the right decision. So it's important for us to be decisive. It's okay to make a mistake. You can rectify it next time. But being indecisive and being insincere and confused all the time will ensure that you will face ruin. Okay. So with this, we'll come to the end of the fourth chapter. I think another beautiful chapter with so many wonderful insights. Let us look at the fifth chapter now, the first verse of the fifth chapter. I'll request Hamsa to repeat the verse today and tomorrow. There are only few verses I think we can cover today. We have 15 minutes. So, okay, can you see the screen? Yeah. So Arjuna Uvacha. Samnyasam karmanam Krishna punar yogam cha shamsasi Yat Shreya etayorekam tanme bruhi sunishchitam. Once again, he says, tell me for sure. I want to know for certain. What does he want to know for certain? What will lead to um, uh, uh, what will lead to the ultimate goal? So, what will lead to Shreyas, right? Now, you are saying that sannyasa is good and karma is good, karma yoga is good. Now, what is really better of the two, right? Now, what is that which will lead to a high level of being? Even earlier, Arjuna had this query, right? Between the jnana and karma, between bhakti and jnana. So this is a very, very constant confusion, because earlier he said, well, you told me that it's best to follow the path of knowledge, and then you are asking me to fight in this terrible war. You are giving me this conflicting message. This is what he said earlier. Now he's saying you are praising sannyasa and you're also praising karma yoga. Now, which is better of the two? Right? So, sannyasa, which means giving up action or renunciation. And in this context, it probably refers to Sankhya, which is the path of reasoning, which we will see later in the 5th chapter. Karma yoga is the path of selfless action, which is working without expectation of a certain result. So, both these things you are praising. So, what is better? Tell me for sure. So Arjuna Uvacha, Krishna, Karmanam Sanyasam Punaha Yogam Cha Shamsasi. Krishna, Karmanam Sanyasam Punaha Yogam Cha Shamsasi. You praise Sanyasa, then you're praising Karma Yoga. Etayoho Yat Shreyaha. Among these, what is better? What is superior? Tat Sunishchitam Ekam Me Bruhi. For certain, tell me one which is to be followed, which is better. Now, this trait is very, very common in all of us, because when we are given multiple choices, we get confused. Now, one of the difficulties that is faced by this generation is that there are too many choices. When we were younger, we go to, like a grocery store. We just give a list of things that we require. We want, godi, we want akki, we want, some dal. So we give a list of things to this guy written on a piece of paper, and he will give us wheat and rice and dal and whatever groceries are required, different pulses and masalas, asafoetida, whatever we want, right? Today, you go to the supermarket, there are 17 different types of asafoetida. There are 18 different varieties of some other product. Okay, you want to have pepper, you can have this pepper, A, B, C, D, so many types of pepper. By the time you decide which to get, your half the day is gone. So sometimes a lot of options actually make it very confusing, very difficult, right? Similarly, with books, earlier I used to have lesser number of books, easier for me to pick whatever and read. Now I have a lot of books. Half the time I'm confused which book to read and which to pick and what to what to focus on. Same thing in whenever every weekend I go to my friend's house and we hang out there and we decide to watch a movie. So 25 minutes is taken sitting in front of Netflix. Which movie to watch? Oh, this movie I have watched, but you have not watched. This movie, three of us have watched, the fourth person has not watched. So, in deciding which movie to watch, we have spent half an hour and we would not have watched any movie. So, like this, too many options are there, we find it difficult. At the same time, if we don't have any options, we will not know what else is there. So, although in Sanatana Dharma, one of the difficulties, it's like in today's world, there are many options. There is Karma Marga, it seems, there is Bhakti Marga, there is Jnana Marga, there is some Prapatti, there is some Hatha Yoga. You tell me one thing, man, very, very simple. One thing you do, I will do it. Now, this is a one size fits all approach, which doesn't exist in Sanatana Dharma. That is why we generally tend to go to a guru who is wise enough to realize our special circumstances, and the guru takes the time and effort to identify what is the best path for you. Now, in some cases, the guru can be a physical person, like some sannyasi or some saint with a big beard and wearing some ochre robes. Or the guru can be a good book which tells you which are the different paths, and you use that to figure out yourself. Or guru can be Google or some website or something. It can be anything, right? YouTube can be guru, provided you know what is good, what is not good. You have some amount of discretion and viveka, then you can rely on books and internet and so on. But if you don't have that, it is always better to go to a physical person, because they'll be able to exactly pinpoint what is ideal for you. So here again, Arjuna is asking for specificity. So Arjuna Uvacha.
Arjuna Uvacha.
Samnyasam karmanam Krishna.
Sannyasam karmanam Krishna.
Punaryogam cha shamsasi.
Punaryogam cha shamsasi.
Yachreya etayorekam.
Yachreya etayorekam.
Tanme bruhi sunishchitam.
Tanme bruhi sunishchitam.
Thank you. Then Sri Bhagavan Vacha, Krishna replies, Samnyasah karma yogascha nishreyasa karavubhau tayostu karma samnyasat karma yogo vishishyate. Both sannyasa and karma yoga lead to matchless bliss. There is no doubt about this. Both of them are going to lead to matchless bliss. Of the two, however, karma yoga is superior. Clearly, he points out this is better. Both are good. Both of them lead to the same goal. But karma yoga is superior. You can take nice road, you can go on the main road. But nice road is superior. For example, right? You are going to Mysore. There are two ways, or there are three ways to reach there. This is through the marketplace. There is one which is a long route around that, and which is some other route. So you have got a car, long route, which will take less time, maybe longer in distance, but less time, better. Very clearly, he is giving an answer now. Both sannyasa and karma lead to matchless bliss. Of the two, however, karma yoga is superior. Sannyasa karma yoga cha ubhau nishreyasa karau. Both are very, very good. Tayoho, among them, to indeed, karma sannyasat karma yoga vishishyate. Karma sannyasat, giving up karma, sannyasa from karma, giving up karma and completely. So sannyasa means completely giving up all karma, right? You are detached so much and you have no need to do anything. It is not laziness. There's a difference, right? Detachment that leads to complete disassociation from all worldly affairs is sannyasa, whereas working without attachment is karma yoga. Now, it is easier to work and progress on the path of karma yoga. The path of detachment is something which can easily drift towards laziness rather than realization. So it is only for very, very, very few people that sannyasa is prescribed, because sannyasa, which is complete renunciation from action, requires detachment. The moment that detachment factor goes down a little bit, the immediate result is laziness. So a sannyasi who is not really a sannyasi, who is only wearing the external garb of a sannyasi, can very easily become a lazy person. Whereas a karma yogi is working step by step towards reaching the highest goal. That's why he says karma sannyasat karma yoga vishishyate. Karma yoga is superior to karma sannyasa. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha.
Shri Bhagavan Uvacha.
Sannyasah karma yogascha.
Sannyasah karma yogascha.
Nishreyasa karavubhau.
Nishreyasa karavubhau.
Tayostu karma sannyasat.
Tayostu karma sannyasat.
Karma yogo vishishyate.
Karma yogo vishishyate.
Then he says, Neyaha sa nitya sannyasi yona dveshtina kankshati nirdvandvo hi mahabaho sukham bandhat pramuchyate. So, to underscore the fact how difficult it is to be a sannyasi, Krishna says, a true sannyasi is a person who harbors no hatred, no desire. He is free from all dualities, he is free from bondage. Right? So, Mahabaho, a mighty armed one, Yaha na dveshti, one who does not hate, na kankshati, who does not desire anything, Saha nitya sannyasi gneyaha. Such a person is an eternal sannyasi. He's, the real, true sannyasi. Tayoho that's a previous one. Nirdvandvaha bandhat sukham pramuchyate. Free from all dvandvas, free from all dualities like heat and cold and pleasure and pain, praise and censure, success, failure, all these dualities, freed from all these dualities. He is he's free from all these bandhat sukham pramuchyate. He is has no bindings and he is in peace. So a sannyasi is somebody who's in the path of sannyasa, and he is free from any sort of clinging or attachment. Now, how difficult it is to be like this. Whereas it is much easier for us to focus on our work at hand, especially when we have taken up work that is really interesting to us, and focusing on that and doing that well, rather than completely being empty and not doing anything, which is why it's very difficult for people to do meditation. It's much easier for people to engage in action that they like. So let's wrap up with this verse, and if there are any questions, we can take it up. Nyeyaha sa nitya sannyasi.
Nyeyaha sa nitya sannyasi.
Yona dveshti na kankshati.
Yona dveshti na kankshati.
Nirdvandvo hi mahabaho.
Nirdvandvo hi mahabaho.
Sukham bandhat pramuchyate.
Sukham bandhat pramuchyate.
Thank you, Hamsa. Tomorrow also, if it is okay, you can recite the verses. So we see how practical the Bhagavad Gita is in its prescriptions, because it's coming from understanding of human nature. There's no point in setting a very high ideal and not at all being able to reach that. Even today, in many of the modern works, right, they talk about smart goals, setting goals that are within your reach, or doing something which is just a little more difficult than your level. So if you're at level 1, you do something which is 1.1. If you're at level 20, you do 20.1. So slowly you push your standard, because not everybody can take on that giant leap. We like small leaps. We can. It's so much easier to climb the steps or go on an incline rather than having to climb a mountain. We have from our own experience. So this method of taking step by step to the higher level is more stable, and it will work for more number of people. So keeping this larger set of people in mind, understanding human nature, the prescriptions are things which are more practical, rather than giving something which is very ideal, high funda thing, which only few people can understand and practice. So we see this constantly in the Gita. If there are any questions, then we can take it up. Otherwise, you can always write to me. By now, you would have seen in the Bhagavad Gita that there are ideas that keep repeating. It might even get boring for some people, but the fact that this is being repeated only means it is very, very important, and therefore it is very valuable if we are able to bring this into practice, like working with our attachments. Now, like I said, always there is the step-by-step approach. Now, we may not be able to do everything without attachment. At least something, maybe 5 minutes in a day, you can do something which we have no expectation. We are doing it because it is the right thing to do. Like maybe putting water to the plant, or helping somebody with their work, or maybe once a week or once a fortnight, once a month, whatever is feasible for us, given our circumstances, given the load that we can bear, little bit if we can do without any expectation, that slowly adds up. Then we also experience what it means to work without expectation and how easy it becomes to do that. And when we try it out in our own lives in simple ways, then we get a experience of that result, and we have the ability to extend it over a period of time. So with that, we come to the end of today's session. Thank you for your time. We will reconvene tomorrow at the same time. Om Tat Sat. Have a nice day, have a nice evening, wherever you are.
Thank you.
ಧನ್ಯವಾದ.